guys, and welcome back. This is ChosenArchitect, and today we're jumping back into some more mechanical mastery. Hopefully you guys are ready. So remember that tree farm that we built a few episodes ago and then I tore it down and here we are again? Yeah, I've built this three more times. Well, four now as I've rebuilt this. And today we are going to be working on getting ourselves the effigies hopefully done. And I was looking, and it definitely needs a lot of charcoal, I think, for all of this setup. Charcoal is going to be used to make gunpowder. Charcoal is going to be used for all kinds of different things, believe it or not. Yeah, we're definitely going to need it in abundant supply. So not only can we use this right here as like an EMC farm, we can use all four of these as a means of generating a bunch of charcoal and basically free fuel. So we don't have to waste EMC on that. Now underneath here, I have some things hooked up to this drawer. This is an external storage, but I have the priority set to 2, which is 1 higher than our main drawer and 2 higher than our main system, thus being our drives. The goal is to make sure that anytime we put logs in that they make it here, because eventually we're going to have this voided off. And so when we have too much built up in here, we want to make sure it's voiding off, but logs should never really void off. Logs should always either be turned into EMC or they should be used in making charcoal. So that will always definitely happen. And same with the saplings. Now with all of this hooked up, I should be able to turn it all on. And I believe I have everything glued together like it's supposed to be, but I am going to need to put some saplings in several of these to sort of get them jump started. So saplings definitely need to go in here. It's going to cost some initial EMC. That's completely fine. And Mr. Chicken, you are in the way as of right now because I need to pop in here and turn this on. And there it goes. Just like that. And it is going to drop, and I'm going to place this back. Oh boy, it is emptying all the saplings into here. There we go. And I'm going to do this for all of them. But as you can see, the tree farm should get up and running very quickly. Maybe you may be wondering, Chosen, how come you're not using like the ender chest thing that you had mentioned last episode? And I just don't have the sufficient blaze rods yet to really keep up with that. So that is going to be something that will happen as soon as we get sort of these effigies up and running. We'll have blaze rods, hopefully. And that's sort of the whole point of today's episode, really. Now, if you're wondering exactly how these tree farms work, or this particular tree farm works, be sure to check out episode 3, because in that episode, I built this exact setup, just using different logs and different materials, but the exact same setup, really, except for I placed the storage interface 1 back, giving it a little bit more compactness. Now, the good part about having all of this wood is we can always have charcoal and should always have a charcoal supply. Now, back behind my storage here, because we do have a lot of this empty space to sort of work with, I like to hide some things, and this is something that can definitely be hidden. And I have an advanced smelter, set that to auto sort, and then I just need to run some cable over here. So cables, and with this cable setup, we can have an exporter and an importer. Well, given that I keep my magnet on, or keep my ring on. So exporter, we can set that onto the top. Remember, exporting is going to be pulling things out of your refined storage system. And then importer is going to put things into your system. So we have power connected on the one side. And so we should be able to just connect right in. And then on the top, I just need to say oak logs. And this should be as simple as this. This is going to just start immediately producing charcoal for us using all that residual wood. And this can be increased as we go. Now, charcoal, I do want to take the first bits of charcoal here. And then I want those to go into one of these mass storage drawers. And I want to put it here because this should, when it imports, automatically go into this container. That is, until this container is completely full. Now, here's where the fun happens, though. I'm going to place a detector on the importer, and I want to shut off the imports. So this will continue to fill. But what I want is if it is over so much, let's just say, for example, 8,000. Let's just say we have 8,000 stored away. I want to make sure that we can shut this off. So when the, let's see, when the amount, emit a signal went under, emit a signal went on the amount, emit a signal went above amount. So when it is just above the amount, it will go ahead and shut off And then we need to make sure this will only work without a redstone signal, because I want this to emit a signal, yeah, when above. So there we go. So, and then we need to tell it charcoal, right? So there's the charcoal. And so now it will shut off the importer. It will no longer pull these items in when it's ready. And of course I do have to configure auto eject and make sure we have everything set up, inputs on, and then outputs the bottom. And there it goes. It's going to start sending this to our storage, and our charcoal now is increasing, which is perfect. And of course, all we have to do is add some speed upgrades, and this thing is going to be blazing right along. Now, this is pretty huge because it allows us to go here to this particular setup, which was actually inefficiently destroying our charcoal. And we can now more efficiently set this up and just use charcoal, which is being generated at a cost of no EMC, right? And so that is going to pretty much make the same thing. It's a enriched coal, and is going to get our steel processing back up and running and all that good stuff. But it's now doing it significantly cheaper. Now, I also want to export logs into my EMC system. And I think an interesting way of doing that is to use an exporter on this. But what we do is we change priority here, which I think these have a priority. Do they not have a priority? Wait, you're telling me exporters don't have priorities? Well, with exporters not having priorities, I think it will still work. So when this is full of logs and yeah, it's completely full, hopefully it doesn't just start completely dumping all of these, but we can try it. If not, there is another way I can do this. I want to send these logs into here to generate EMC, but I also want to make sure this stays full of logs and it just doesn't all get turned into EMC and we stop producing charcoal. So with that, it does seem like that is the case, that it was definitely doing that. So what I might do instead is use an exporter, and this exporter is going to be connected to this detector, right? And so what I can do is I can shut off the exporter here with the same detector that we're detecting our charcoal. And as of right now, this right here is set up, right, to only work with a redstone signal. So this will stop working, right? Once it hits 8,000, we need to basically do the opposite here. So I want this to feed logs, but I don't want it to work unless it has a redstone signal. So only work with a redstone signal. And that means it won't export until this is emitting a redstone signal, which means our coal is at 8,000, meaning that we have no need for this to continue running, and vice versa. So that should handle itself, which is gonna be pretty nice. Now, on a side note, I kind of want to have the saplings going in there. So I want all of the saplings to be turned back into EMC, which they're currently building up. So to do that, we'll just make sure to set another exporter over here and get some cables hooked to it. And this one should be left normally, and all of our saplings should be taken care of. Now, we're still going to have sticks and stuff build up, but that's where void upgrades come into play. Now, another thing I want to set up in here is going to be Obsidian automation. And this might seem a little bit strange to do it in this small space, but I should be able to get it done quite compactly here. So to do this, we're going to use a blast chiller. This is going to be kind of cool. So I will have my crucible going here and a blast chiller right here. And I'll need to make sure the configuration is set up to input from the top and to output the lava to the side. And then when the blast chiller receives lava, it is going to convert it into ice. Or sorry, not ice, it's obsidian. And so down here, we can have that go. Looks like I'm getting some weird errors. But we can have that output to the bottom into an importer. So more and more importers. I'm really going to need these on tap. This is going to be a huge part. Now, the importer should be able to take that obsidian and hopefully get that all put into our drawer, because we're going to want that as well in one of these drawers, especially later on down the road when we get more mechanism. So we'll set this up, and then this just needs netherrack, right? Because netherrack is the most efficient thing to use inside of a crucible to make lava. So there's more of our power going. Once this receives a bucket, as you can see, it's going to start doing its thing. And to speed this up, it doesn't have to be super fast, but to speed it up for right now, we can go ahead and throw in an upgrade. Look at that. This is only the second tier. So there's the obsidian. And I don't know if there's a nether in this. I haven't tried to go to the nether, but that would be something that would be kind of fun. But I want to put this right next to it. So take all the obsidian out, and there we go. And now this should be generating some obsidian for us. Now, I know you're excited to see how we go about automating the mobs and the summoning in of the mobs with the effigies, but there's some things we have to take care of first. And it's a little bit more technical, honestly, but once we get it done, it can kind of just run. And that's the production of sulfur and nitrate dust. Now, these two things are used to make gunpowder, which we are going to definitely need for the effigies, as all of them require some sort of use of gunpowder. Now, to make the sulfur dust, we can get this done in a pressurized reaction chamber with some oxygen. May sound like a lot, but it's really not that bad, it looks like, to do stuff like this, to get this all set up. It looks like we will have the same rate, regardless of... Actually, no. This would actually be a worse rate, right, of using this, because this requires 10, whereas this only requires 1. So this is like 10 to 1, where this is 1 to 1. So it's better to do 1. I guess the process rate is what's sped up. You get 9 at the same speed of 1. And yeah, we're going to be using charcoal. So we're going to need oxygen and some sort of water. Oxygen is pretty easy to come by, and we're going to need a pressurized reaction chamber, which isn't too expensive on us. Now, to get oxygen, we need an electrolytic separator to be able to get to that point. The electrolytic separator is also something that's not super expensive and just requires some water, which we can feed to it from an aqueous accumulator. So these just need some power to be able to produce this dust. And so we'll just feed it some charcoal dust. So to get charcoal dust, we'll just be able to crush. Yeah, use a crusher to just crush this down. And so we'll keep it all mechanism. I think that will work out just fine. Now, sulfur dust, nitrate dust is a little bit more complicated, but thankfully we already have all the infrastructure set up for this. So what we can do is we can convert this setup that I had going over here. I can't remember. I think it's this one. Yeah, that's automatically producing sand, right? And we can take this sand and we can just craft and send it over to here. Like, these are both filled with sand. So what we need to do is we need to create a system that generates sand, of course, stores sand, and then sends the residual sand over to this barrel, but compacts it until we get a bunch of nitrate dust. So this is going to have to be something that is handled with refined storage for sure. And I have already set all of that stuff up over here. So I said I should definitely replace this right here, this particular barrel, because it's only going to be ever receiving gravel. And I need this, which is just spill it everywhere. I need this to be a large drawer. And so that should work out pretty good. And we can just send all of this extra gravel right back into it. And so these two are going to be producing gravel, and then I can also hook into this and use this as our main gravel storage. I think that'll be fine. We can increase the rate on that and make sure we always have some storage there. And then I'll just make sure to hook the pipe back into it, and that'll get descending to there. Everything else just needs to be an importer, right? So let me grab an importer, and we can put that onto the bottom. Now, I want to make sure that flint and clay and all of these resources here are going into the storage over here. So these are all automated resources now. So now we have even more automated resources, right? We have these 3 items that are just constantly being produced at the cost of basically nothing. 1 EMC per item. It does add up over time, but we're generating way more, and this will be way more worth it than spending it on any other resource. So there we go. So this is going to start to empty here. I'm sure it'll be fast enough to keep up. But what I want to do is I want to set up an auto craft sort of setup that automatically compresses some of the sand and sends that into this barrel. Now, I definitely want to make sure to get a void upgrade on this bad boy as soon as possible, because I do not want this particular thing overflowing into my main storage. That would be pretty quickly filled up, and this would max everything out. Now, crafting that stuff. Crafters are going to be something that's going to be used a lot, I think. And we can actually make any of these. There we go. I passed it up. We should be able to make one of these crafters specifically for this task. And so if I go ahead and set one up, it doesn't really matter where it's at. I'm going to place it probably one above, just to say, hey, this is the specific crafter for this task. And I can place it right here, just so long as we have a cable hook to it. And then at the bottom, I'm going to have an exporter. But this is going to be a special exporter because I want this exporter to also request crafts. So this is something that we're going to be doing a lot, I think. Crafting upgrade. So this thing right here, this is going to be probably one of the most used things in this pack by me. And that is the crafting upgrade. This is going to allow a craft to be requested into an inventory upon its initial export request, right? So if we put a crafting upgrade in here and we have a pattern set up, for example, to craft down sand into sandstone, which is what we're going to be doing. So long as we feed this pattern into a crafter, like right here, we can then say, hey, request sandstone. If there's no sandstone in our refined storage system, it's going to attempt to do a craft for it. And that's going to be pretty cool and super useful for this whole setup here. So right down here, we should have some refined cables. You can see right there. So as soon as we get this hooked in, it should start and fire up automatically and start doing that process. I need to make sure and get all of this transferred over. So this will go into the drawers that it already has associated with it. But we should be able to get ourselves some nitrate automated, and that's going to be super nice. Instead of relying on several other processes, I think doing the one that's intended is probably going to work out for us in the end. So we'll drag this up and get it connected, and there we go. So we should be getting a request. There's our request, and that is going down, going in, doing exactly what it's supposed to. Sandstone is being produced, and this will stop producing the sandstone if there's no more inventory space. So I don't really have to worry about that too much. But what we should see is sand repopulating, and we get ourselves some nitrate dust. So there is a % chance that we always will get back at least one piece of sand. So it's not horribly destructive to do this, but it's, especially since we're producing so much of it, this should be more than enough. So what I'm going to need to do is take that nitrate dust, which is one of the ingredients that we're going to need for a lot of things, and just make sure we add it to our drawer system, and then make sure our priority is set to the appropriate priority here. So that way on our import, we're not pulling from our main storage, we're just pulling from our drawers. So I have to grab another importer. There we go. And this automation is basically done. And then we can get into what I would call a more complicated thing, but really this isn't horrible, but it can get kind of complicated, especially if you don't have this sort of setup already going on. Now for this other setup, it shouldn't be too bad. We're going to need a crusher, a PRC, which is a pressurized reaction chamber. That's going to go right here. And then we could probably put the electrolytic separator up onto the top of this. Now, before we turn anything on, we're going to want to make sure that everything is configured properly. And for this, I'm going to set the input to the top, make sure auto extract is on, and make sure the output goes to the right, which is going to go into our pressurized reaction chamber. Now, this is going to handle a bunch of different things, items just being one of them. And then we're going to want to make sure we output to the right, which is perfectly fine. Now, the input, I'm going to go ahead and remove all other inputs and make sure the input is just the right. Now, here's where things get a little bit more complicated. Now, on the electrolytic separator, I never really know what is going to be on the right side and what's going to be on the left until I actually get it set up. So let's go ahead and get this thing set up. Now, to do this, I want to feed it water to the top, or feed the water to the top, and then the back, I want to have that back be where we get power, because everything is going to sort of be getting power through the back here. Looks like I'm gonna have to make some more cables. There we go. So there we go. Everything has power. Nothing's really hooked in just yet, but the water, this is where the water is going to go. And I think I have some buckets, ready to go. And we should have water in one of our corners, if I remember correctly. I'm always setting these up, so you think I'd have some sort of crazy water setup, but I don't really just yet. Now, trapdoors, they tend to work for this, just to make sure water's not spilling everywhere. And there we go. So we have a water source. Of course, there is a way to get water infinitely as well through mechanism using a pump. And it's actually pretty fast, and it's probably one of the fastest ways to get water to some of the mechanism machines. So let's use the basic mechanical pipe, and then we're going to route the water into the top here via this method. That should get the job done, right? Right? Hopefully nothing explodes. No, I'm just kidding. Nothing explodes here with these basic machines. All right, so this is filling up. Now, what I'm needing is to make the sulfur dust, and that requires oxygen. So we need to take the side that's generating oxygen, and we need to make sure that fills up. But hydrogen we don't really need, so we're going to dump excess hydrogen to make sure we always generate oxygen. Then we need to feed that oxygen down here, and it looks like I'm going to also have to power the PRC from the bottom. Due to the way the water is going to have to feed in, because we're also going to need water fed into this as well. So let's take a mechanical pump and we'll feed the water in, and then I'll use the power here to feed that into the bottom. Little janky on the setup here, but there we go. So now this is receiving water. Now we just need to say, hey, oxygen, which is going to be under the gases section, we need to make sure this outputs to the bottom. In which it, of course, did not output appropriately. It outputted here, because that's, of course, how it always works with mechanism. We can actually use a pipette, I think, from mechanism. The only way to get these things out is to use a dropper, and we have to pull it out of here, and there we go. Now we have oxygen. So if you accidentally mess up like that, you can always use a gauge dropper, which will pull the material out of here and put the appropriate one in if you happen to make a mistake like that. So there we go. So that should be set up. This is sending the appropriate gas into the appropriate location. This now has everything it needs. The only thing we need is some charcoal, and so we can use the crusher to get the charcoal dust. That should send to this, and this should still continue once we get it powered up to make the oxygen. And there we go. And then that should generate the sulfur dust. Perfect. And sulfur dust is exactly what we need for our next operation. So we'll just have an importer send the sulfur dust over here, and then we need to make sure we get our exporter set up. So all in all, not horribly difficult to do this process, and these can all be sped up, of course, just depending on how much RF you have. But yeah, there we go. So right, exporter on this and importer on the other. Seems like that's going to work. Look at that. And I have plenty of refined storage materials, but I still need to get all those auto-crafted. Now, there is one slight issue. This is producing a byproduct called hydrogen. And, well, I have very minimal sides to work with here with this machine, unfortunately. Because I have to pipe in water, I have to pipe in an ingredient, and I have to also have some other machine sending a fluid. And I also need it powered. So the only side I have available is the face. Thankfully, you can work with the face on this machine, unlike thermal. So on this sort of thing, I am going to use a mechanism tank. The same thing I used to actually craft the PRC. So yeah, we should be able to use a basic chemical tank for this. And then have the chemical tank on the face. And then we need to have this gas go to the appropriate location. And that needs to be the output to the front, just like that. Which kind of sticks out like a sore thumb here. But we need to set this to dump excess. So any excess will be sure to be dumped, so that way we don't end up with an abundance of it. Well, guys, with all of that being said and done, we got the first part of pretty much the effigy automation done. But more effigy automation will happen next episode, which we should be able to get the entire yellow essence completely automated within next episode. That, of course, is the goal. Now, of course, this is the time where I throw in the, hey, would you click that subscribe button part? And if you would, also ring that notification bell and give this video a huge thumbs up. As guys, I really do appreciate you, and it really does go a long ways when you guys do that. Now, of course, it is time to thank the supporter of today's video, and that huge thanks is going to go to, believe it or not, this translates to English, it translates to Fire First. So, thank you, Fire First, and I do appreciate you a lot. Now, of course, guys, without further ado, be sure to check out the Discord, discord.gg/ChosenArchitect. as that is a great way to support, just like Fire First there. And also, yet again, check out my Twitch, twitch.tv/ChosenArchitect, where you'll find me live streaming Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, right around 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. That is usually the best time to get to me. So, guys, I hope to see you there. And of course, I hope to see you in the next episode. Leave a comment down below if you did enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one. As always, thanks for watching. Bye!